If you've ever wondered how to stand out as a singer and find your own unique voice, then this video is for you. I'm taking you behind the scenes of the Rustic Songbird podcast, where I interview Moe Loughran, who is a vocal coach and songwriting coach in Nashville, and she's sharing from her experience of teaching many singers how to find their own unique voice and that sweet spot of their unique sound. So you're going to get a lot out of today's interview. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for even more interviews like this coming soon, and also subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Search for Rustic Songbird. There's also a link in the description. Would love to have you as a part of our Rustic Songbird family. All right, let's get into today's interview. My guest on the show today is Moe Loughran. She is a singer, songwriter, recording artist. She has traveled, and now she is the owner of Nashville Creative House and is a vocal and songwriting coach. So she's literally done it all. And today on the show, I wanted to talk about her tips for how to find your own voice and finding that sweet spot of your own unique sound. So Moe, welcome to the show.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak into other people's lives. And I just want to affirm you and thank you for all the work that you are doing for creatives and musicians and songwriters, and for giving back through your experience over the years and then helping train up people that are just getting started. You're really doing amazing things.
I'm so lucky to do like what you're doing and what you're giving to people. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're not just kind of being selfish and taking it for yourself. So I appreciate all the things that you like. I don't know how you do it. Like with your schedule, holy moly. It's like you got a cape on the back of you or something.
do I have a cape? Super mom and doing the music thing and the podcast. Yeah, there's, you know what, I've learned there's so many things that I can't do, and I know that I can't do it all. But there are several important things to me that I'm making time for and asking for help and having people help me. And so I know for you too, you have a team and you have other people that you're working with too. And that makes all the difference. To have the support and to have a team makes a big difference.
It does.
Yeah, well, let's tell our listeners a little bit of just your experience in the music industry, and then how that kind of pivoted and changed into the coaching and teaching that you're doing today.
So I started off like most people. I loved music when I was little, which I'm sure you did as well. And my parents saw that I was definitely not going to be a mathematician or a science major, as I think I lit one girl's hair on fire on accident in chemistry because I turned the burner the wrong way. So all of that led me to like, this is kind of like my plan A, B, and C is to do some type of music, hopefully, and be successful at it. And I went to I trained in opera and really got classical music is always a good component to revisit because it works a different side of the folds of your vocal folds, and it works a different part of your breath. So whenever people are like, oh, I don't want to do classical, I'm like, wait, just see how it works the muscle, because we forget that this is a muscle. It's not like your skin or a guitar or something else. It's actually your muscle, and we have to treat it like a part of a muscle that has to be stretched, a muscle that has to be hydrated, that has to be fed, that has to be treated in a proper manner. Otherwise, if it's not, then it won't function properly, right?
Right.
So I learned the hard way in college about how to misuse your voice, and then how to also use your voice properly. I grew up and going to Belmont, I grew up during the Amy Grant phase of life, and I could El Shaddai it with the best of them. and I could make that voice, like she does this like little hush whisper tone, El Shaddai. And like, I would mimic that. And so, and I went, when I got there, Carolyn Binkley was my coach at Belmont, and her mom was super famous. And as a vocal coach, and she helped me get out of mimic and get into, this is what your bass sound is. This is your tone. This is not your tone influenced by Amy Grant, or who else did I love? I love Laura, Donna Summer, or whoever it was at the time was like my new person I wanted to sound like, because we all do that growing up. We all want to sound like somebody.
Sure. is the highest form of flattery, right?
Right.
Imitation.
How much can I sound like? And now they have videos going viral about how to sing hipster, right?
Wow.
So
That's so great.
good. And like they do all these different, and it's vowel tones and how
Mm,
you lengthen and shorten the vowel tones to make it sound
like a hipster.
Halsey or
Yeah.
Ariana Grande. And the big thing is that it's like all of those people they're doing that. And so in
Hmm.
order for somebody to recognize you, you have to find the best you. And so going through college, I learned to shed basically all the layers of, it's like when you've over processed your hair. If you've ever done that, you probably haven't. I have many times. And it's like shedding all of the stuff and getting down to what's your base tone, what's your base sound, what's your range, and then building from that foundation versus a foundation that really isn't you. Because the biggest thing I will ever say to anybody is you will always go back to you.
Yeah.
You can hide from it for a little while. You can disguise it. You can put a hat or earrings on it, however you want to do it, but you will always go back to you. Your tone, you will go back to the way you say things. You will go back to the way you take breaths. So how can we mold it in a way that it works for you professionally, it works for you artistically,
Hmm.
and for your longevity, right? Because if you're only going to have a window of 2 to 5 years, that's not very long, right? But we could have a longevity for 10, 15,
Yeah.
20, 25 years. I mean, the Stones have been performing for 40 plus years. And that's something to look at. How are they able to um, elongate their careers from a stance of being healthy with their voice and also being true to their artistry, so it doesn't
Right.
compromise. So
Yeah.
that's and then when I left Belmont, I went to Sony. I wrote for Sony for 4 years, and then I toured internationally. And then I played some major gigs like Woodstock '99. I played and was able to receive an American Music Award in 2003. And I worked
Awesome.
with Big Loud Shirt for a hot minute. And now I really work mainly with different artists that are in the film and TV music community.
Hmm.
And then I work with country independent artists. Independent artists can make just as much, if not more, than signed artists. It's all about how you present yourself and how you present
Hmm.
yourself as who you are, because you have to believe, right? It all goes back to you presenting, being honest with your sound, your core sound, how you present it, and being true to that. Because if
Hmm.
you can't do that, then nobody else is going to believe it.
Oh, that's so good. And as a songwriter as well, you want to do the same
Right.
thing. Speak to your message, stay consistent for the long term. And for those that are listening and who are wanting to do music for the rest of their life, this stuff at the beginning and having these basics down will help throughout the whole process. So they're not chasing one thing, switching, different styles of like, oh, is this my sound? Is this my sound? But really finding like what it is that makes them unique.
Right.
And I know you teach a lot of that with like controlling your voice and manipulating your voice and stuff, but it's so true for songwriting as well, as far as the topics and the genres and like how you write. You can try to write like other people, and that can be a good exercise, but once you really get in that groove of this is my message, this is my style, this is what I am passionate about, that's what's going to motivate people to be able to keep going and to be able to make their own music and their own sound without sounding like everybody else.
The other thing too is, just because you are, let's say you're a sunshine writer, you're inspirational, you're the happy spot, it doesn't mean you can't write angst or angry. It just means
True.
that when you come into that space, you know your strengths.
Yeah.
It's just like going into any situation. I know how to do X, Y, and Z. And if
Mm-hmm.
I present that to somebody, then at the end of the day, that's what's going to help me make the song the best song possible, because I know what my strengths are. If I'm going into a hip hop session, right? And I've had to do that, and I'm not a hip hop writer typically, if ever. I mean, I go in and it's like, how do I do this? I'm really good with rhymes. I'm really good with reference points that are not so cerebral, meaning that, only like what we used to call 50-cent words that are not typically used in our everyday language. And how do I bring that back down into a layman's terms, but that's fresh, or that is revisited in a fresh way, right? There's only so many words, there's only so many notes. How do we recreate or create something from our perspective with our spin on it in a way that is presented, that is palatable to the audience? But the biggest thing is like knowing who you are as a writer, knowing who you are as a singer. If your sound, if your core sound is, and I talk about like an artist palette. If you're a yellow, I have several clients that are yellows, and it's like, okay, find all the keys and the sound bites and the rhythms and the ear candy and the instrumentation that supports your yellow. It doesn't mean you can't add blue and green and red and other colors into it, but it does mean this, you know who you are. And if you know who you are, you have the best chance of succeeding. And that doesn't matter if you're in music or if you're a doctor or if you're a sanitation worker. If you know what you're really good at, you're good at connecting with people, you're good at telling stories from a perspective as an observer, so third party, or you're good at talking about things that are not relationships. You're good about talking about the feeling or the moment, or it's some different thing that is connecting you in a way that's not presented haphazardly or disingenuously. How you sing, how you present the song. You can take a song. Let's take an example of a song. I start with this song all the time. If you're trying to figure out like what is your core sound and you're like, I don't even know how to get there, this is the exercise that I do with almost all my students. And I take a very simple song that's a legendary song, and that's Can't Help Myself Falling in Love with You. And I take that and we sing it like a 4-year-old. So we sing it instead of, I can't help falling in love with you. Beautiful, really schmaltzy, lovely, whatever. And we break it down to where it's, wise men say only fools rush in. There's no connecting. There's no vibrato. There's no licks. There's no runs. There's nothing. We're getting really tight with our tone and listening to our tone and repeating that, making it repetitive, recording it, listening to, this is what I sound like. And then moving to the second step, which is connectivity, right? Still no vibrato, still no licks, because that's where people get trippy with their tone or their artistry, because it starts to get into the mimic phase. And you don't need it, because they already have a Jennifer Lopez. They already have Ariana Grande. Be the next whoever you are, right? Be the next super singer, mom / entrepreneur / net president.
Like do it your own way. But yeah, I love that you're saying like take away all those little fancy things and really bring it down to what is the core sound, what does this song actually need, and then you're not getting distracted or confused by like runs and like adding different stuff to it. Like break it down first and then go from there. I really like that approach.
Right. And then the second one is connectivity. So instead of going, wise men say only fools rush in, you connect it. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. So it's still really childlike, robotic. I call it doing the robot, but it's connected. But I'm not doing any isms. I'm not putting breath on it. I'm not putting bite on it. I'm not taking nasal out. I'm not trying to what they call bite a pear, where I'm lifting my palate so that it adds more roundness, more mouth resonance to it. And then the last one I do is I call it Mariah Scares Me, because she's amazing. So, and this is to build fluidity. So every single word now has a lick. Wise men say only fools rush in. And it doesn't matter if it flops. It's not for anybody else to hear. It is for you to build fluidity.
Yeah.
And the other, so we have one side that's really getting to core sound. Then we have the other side of us that's scared to try new things. right? We're scared. Oh, what if that's going to sound awful? Oh,
Yeah, but like you said, it's a muscle. You have to exercise it.
you have to train it, and it learns muscle memory.
Yeah.
So the last one is to build fluidity. Fluidity builds runs, and the more that you do it, the more the muscle responds to it. So if you go out and you start running a mile every day, by the second week, your body's going to respond to you doing that in a way that it's going to be easier for you to do it. It knows it's coming, right?
Right. Yeah.
It knows, especially if you do the same path, it knows where the rise and the fall of the hills are, or the terrain. It knows the time that you typically do it, and it responds to it, and it gets easier. And the muscle and the voice is going to respond to that. That's how we build fluidity. That's how we build our runs, whether they're 3-note runs up or down, or 5 notes, or the halo run, which is a 9-note run that Beyonce does.
Woo.
So all of those things are doable and are able to add to our tool belt, right? This is my tool belt, and I have air on my tone, or I have a lot of different note runs. I can get bite. If you listen, one of the reasons, and if you don't love her, then I'm sorry, but I love her. For any of your listeners, I love Adele because she has all these different tones. She has bite, where she gets angry in the tone, and she
just adds grit. I love it. Yeah.
Or she adds grit, which is another tone, right? How do we add grit? And where do we put the mouth in that? And how do we adjust where the air is coming through? And she puts nasal in it. She puts nose in it. What I call horn. You put horn in it, or she puts a lot of wind on it, a lot of air, where you feel her in her suffering, or in her resignation to what she has succumbed to in the song. And all of those take us on that ride where we feel what she feels when she sings.
Exactly.
And
and so getting to that point of being able to, like, as a songwriter, being able to connect your message of the song with your listener, of being able to sing it with your own voice and sing it from that place, to be able to connect with people and have the emotion come through. I mean, that's the goal. You want people to feel what you were feeling when you wrote this, or to feel what you're saying about the song. And so how you can do that is, like you said, train your voice to be able to go to those places where you're not thinking about it as much, because you've already done the work and you've done the repetition and the exercise. Like you said, going for a run, the first time is going to be really hard, right? But then once you've done it like 100 times, you're not thinking about it as much.
No, and
it becomes more of a muscle memory. Yeah.
It's a muscle memory. And also it's like, what do you do before a run? You stretch. What do you do after a run? You stretch. You take care of your muscles, because they can be damaged. And the way that you don't damage it is you take them, you hydrate your muscles, you stretch your muscles, you make sure to have proper footwear on, you make sure to have proper clothing on, so you're not going out in 0-degree weather in shorts like some people do, which I don't understand that.
I don't get it either.
But maybe that's part of but it's like having the wick, right? It's all about, how do you care for your voice? Are you, they say the vocal folds have to be at least 60% hydrated in order to really function at top capacity. And that's holding the money notes, and that's holding the breath and doing swell notes, and be able to emote as you want to emote, not as you have to emote, but as you want. It's what you want to do with your sound. Whether it's writing or singing or performing, it's like realizing it's an athletic process. Is just turning, as musicians or creatives, when we turn that part of our brain into, okay, this is a part of my body, and as an athlete, I have to make sure that I am taking care of it in a proper space and in a way that is really part of the core. And then finding my true, no additives sound, and building. It doesn't mean you can't add to it. It means, okay, I know what I sound like. This is what I sound like. This is what my chest range at the top sounds like. This is what my chest range at the bottom sounds right. This is what my falsetto is. People hate their falsetto or their head voice. And it's like, the only reason you don't like it is because you haven't built it up. If you build that up, it is a huge emotive tool in your tool belt. But you have to work it, A-E-I-O-U, and going on those notes where your break is, and making the break smoother. If you don't address it, if you hide from this, it's just like dieting or if you don't like your hips, how do you fix it? How do you work it? You can make it look and sound better, but it has to be addressed. You can't hide from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you addressed that you need to hydrate and take care of your voice too, because so many times people try to get better, but they overdo it. Like they'll push their voice too much, trying to, do things that aren't in their comfortable range, or trying to sound like somebody else, but their voice isn't either ready for that, or it's just not made the same way. Everybody's different.
Your body is made the way it's made. I've had many clients, that's funny that you said that, come in and they've worked with producers and they want them to sound like Carrie Underwood. And there's no way that voice, which is a small, fragile, beautiful, Alison Krauss style of a voice, right, is going to have the power within 6 months to pull off a Carrie Underwood. It's two different, it's apples to oranges. It doesn't mean she can't have big notes, but it does mean that you're trying to turn something into something else. And instead of finding the beautiful, delicate flutters, innocent bell tone, all of these qualities, and focus on that and sell that. That's something to sell. Not everybody has to be this big powerhouse voice. The little voices, the small, tender, innocent voices are just as captivating, right? And finding the producers that will not try to change your sound, but enhance your sound.
Right, and bring that natural tone out.
Right. Because if you're going to replicate it, if you're going to have longevity, you have to be able to replicate it. So if what you do in the studio is really just studio music and not what you can do live, then you're going to have a rub.
Yeah.
There's going to be a rub, and you're going to have to figure that part out. And the more that you can acoustically orient your ear, orient your sound and tone, it's just going to get better. Whenever we go into the studio, I try to get all my singers to not put any verb, no effects, nothing on it.
Just keep it really clean at the beginning.
Super bass, because everything we add onto it is just going to be better. And if you can make it sound good with just your natural acoustical tone, just think what we can do with all the bells and whistles. And on top of it, you can release things that are acoustic, and then things that have all dressed up.
All that production.
Right.
Yeah. But you're not hiding behind the production. It's the tone and the voice is speaking for itself.
Right. And it shines through. And people, when they come live, they're not interested. I've seen shows where it's a very produced show. And it's like, basically you're playing the record and having dancers. And for me, that's not as appealing as when I have somebody that's doing a breakdown and you're hearing just the clarity of their voice in an acoustic instrument. That is breathtaking. That's a moment.
Like going back to the Adele example of her voice. I mean, she sounds incredible live. She comes out and can just sing in a microphone without anything. And, the whole room can feel the emotion of the song, and it doesn't need any of that.
No.
And so to get to the point to where you are consistent, like with your sound in the studio and with your sound live, it's really good, because then people can listen to your music and they're like, oh, this is great, but I love it even more when it's live, because they have that connection.
They paid money they want to have an experience. They don't want to just hear the record. They want to have an experience. So how are you going to deliver that experience? The way you're going to deliver that experience is to be your authentic self. The way that you be your authentic self is to always find your tone, your baseline tone.
And to build up that muscle.
Build that muscle.
Have that stamina. Yeah. So all of you singers out there and songwriters who are listening to this, and maybe if you were like me and never really played sports, I always wondered why I didn't get picked for the teams. I got picked last and stuff, and it never bothered me really. I just went and played my guitar and wrote more songs, and I realized, that's my sport. Music is my sport. And so you're building up those muscles and working out those vocal cords and building up your stamina over time, just like you would as an athlete.
Yeah. Those dodgeballs leave a mark too.
I know.
Cars don't leave marks. So.
I was never great at catching and all of that. I was like, never mind. I'll just go back and play music, and that's worked out well for me. So
that has. It's worked out well for you.
And so I think just finding those things that you're naturally good at and enhancing those is
It
the way to
doesn't
go.
mean you have to stay, right? It doesn't mean you're pigeonholed or this is the only space that you live in.
It's a
But it
starting
does
point.
mean that you have an anchor, you have a reference point that you build from that space. Because if you don't know, somebody else will decide for you, whether it's the record company, the producer, the musicians you work with in the band. They will decide it for you. So it's better for you to hear it, decide, make a pathway, and then change it because you decided to, versus somebody else saying, "Oh no, we're going to go this direction because this is hot right now." Well, music is circular, and if you do anything at all, go back and look at boy bands, girl bands, female singers, duets, and just look at the cycles. It cycles all the time. So if you're not hot right now, guess what, sweetheart? You're going to be hot in about a year to 4 years, maybe.
Yep, as soon as the trends change. So yeah, if you can get ahead of it and be with the next wave of whatever's coming around, it all comes back around.
It always comes back around.
But if you're trying to copy things that are out now, they're going to be outdated by the time
you
your
get
stuff
it
comes out.
Right.
And
or it's not going to live, it's not going to have a shelf life. It's going to be something that's just going to be for the moment, which can be, monetarily substantial for a second. But at the end of the day, it's like, as an artist, you want to have longevity. You don't want to just be a flash in the pan. You want to be able to go and tour.
Yeah.
Be able to create or be able to create with other people that are creating. It's like you always have one hand up that's pulling you and one hand down that you're pulling. And the way that you do that is who you are as an artist.
Yeah, and asking those questions and just being self-aware is a huge part of that. You've mentioned that several times of like asking yourself these questions about what your sound is, and you're finding your range and picking out different styles, different singers, different sounds that you like, and kind of collecting all these little things that come together for your own unique sound.
One thing, the other that I would suggest is, and I've done this with my clients, people are really big into making vision boards. Make a sound board.
Ooh, I like that.
I like trumpets. I like banjo. I like percussion. No, I like drums. Well, I like a loop. Well, find things. Why do you like this? What about it makes you want to work with that tone or that sound or that instrumentation or the lyric content? Or how it drops after the second chorus, or the bridge is just super delicate. Find out why you like what you like, and then make a soundboard so that you can present. Again, artist control, creative control is the biggest gift you can give to yourself.
Yeah.
And moving forward, then you know what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's so inspiring too, because when you have something to go with and say, well, this is what I know I like, this is several things that I like, and I'll just put my own spin on it.
Right.
Then you're not starting from zero. You're starting from a point of inspiration and have somewhere to go with it.
Yep.
That is so, so good. Well, before we wrap up, I want you to let people know where they can find you online and get connected with what you're doing.
I am a coach in Nashville, and I do sessions, or I do lessons. Or I come and I work with producers or record labels. Right now, I work with about 4 labels, and I work with about 10 production houses. And I do Skype lessons, and I just try to really organically find out what you're doing so that we can enhance it, not necessarily change it. But it's NashvilleCreativeHouse.com, and I'm on Instagram as Nashville Creative House. And I really love you. I can't wait to take your course. I think that I'm doing that so that I can better understand and advise my clients. Super excited about it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time being on the show to talk about this, because I think it's really helpful for our listeners. And I just can't wait to see, what we can do together as well. I'm so glad to get connected with you and to send people your way. And what you're doing is amazing with your coaching and just leading people, helping them get started. And that's something I'm passionate about too, is helping independent artists and other singers, songwriters get their music out there in an authentic way, and to do it without having to take the time of doing the hard knocks of the years of doing it the wrong way.
Your course is amazing. I'm so stoked.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm trying to create things that can help other people, like this podcast and like my brand new course, just things that are resources for those that are getting started. And the people that are listening today, I'm sure got a lot out of this. So I appreciate you sharing from your experience and like your tips and advice for how to get that sweet spot and that unique sound. So thank you for being willing to share that today. And I'm so excited to see what's coming next for you.
You're amazing. Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this interview with Moe Loughran. I hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. You can check out all of the interviews that I've done on Rustic Songbird podcast by going to rusticsongbird.com/podcast. Go there and check out all of the amazing people in the music industry that I've interviewed and have shared from their own experience. And also subscribe to this channel for even more great videos behind the scenes coming soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.